Greetings to everyone and welcome to the highly acclaimed guest lecture series, an initiative by Technovanza VJTI. This is Anushka Vag and I am thrilled to be your host for today. Ever since its inception in the year 1887, VJTI has proudly continued the growth of its legacy filled with brilliance and educational prowess. Furthermore, it has thrived in nurturing the brightest minds of society. Over the years, Technovanza has effectively progressed towards its goal of taking technology to the society by meritoriously passing on the flame of expertise to light more torches. Technovanza 2019 witnessed an educational science exhibition on technologies of the Bhabha Atomic Research Centre demonstrating their epitome of research excellence in different fields. Pioneers of diverse fields, including Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, Mr. Ratan Tata, Gaur Gopal Das, and many others have graced Technovanza with their presence while progressively illuminating young minds to new areas of interest. With sheer delight, we are exhilarated to commence our lecture while adding an extraordinary gem to our star-studded list of personages. Our guest for today is the former Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India and the former Chairman to the Scientific Advisory Committee to the Cabinet. Today, we are pleased to welcome the phenomenal Dr. R. Chidambaram. His initiatives include the setting up of the core advisory groups for research and development in various technology sectors and the creation of Rural Technology Action Group, which is centered in 7 IITs. He is presently the DAE Omi Baba Professor in the Bhabha Atomic Research Centre. Dr. Chidambaram became the director of the Bhabha Atomic Research Centre in 1990. He was chairman of the Board of Governors of the International Atomic Energy Agency during 1994 to 95. He has been chairman of the Board of Governors of IIT Bombay and of IIT Madras. Dr. Chidambaram is currently chairman of the Board of Governors of IIT Jodhpur and IIT Delhi. He is a fellow of all the major science academies in India and also of the National Academy of Engineering and the World Academy of Sciences, Trieste. He was awarded the Padma Vibhushan, the second highest civilian award in India in 1999. There is so much more to add to his name. Sir, this small introduction wouldn't do enough justice to your numerous accomplishments. The impact that you created on the next generation is the very result of your perseverance and simplicity. We are truly honored to have you as a guest. We will have a Q&A session after the lecture, so please leave your questions in the live chat below. So, without any further ado, let's be a part of a conversation of a shared future under the guidance of clearly the best. So, passing it on to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Anushka. Other dignitaries of Technovanza, organizers of Technovanza, and my young friends. It's a pleasure to talk to the young people, young students in VJTI. And I'm going to talk to you today on sustainable development to a knowledge economy. Of course, we all want development so that the quality of life of everybody in India, including the poorest, improves. But at the same time, we want that the resources of the world, resources of India, are not depleted too much and enough is available for the future developments, future generations, development of future generations. That is what is meant by sustainable development. Just now, Anushka said that the principle of the vision of Technovanza is technology for society. Peter Medava, the great biologist, done a lot of work on immunology, has said, and he's written a book called Advice to Young Scientists. And in that book, he says, always work on important problems. Important to science or important to society. Because the advice is for young scientists, but it's also equally good for not so young scientists. Also, we want India to go beyond being a developed country and become a knowledge economy with the ability to generate new knowledge and with the ability to appropriate knowledge generated anywhere in the world. That's what the developed countries have been doing. Next. Go full screen. Anushka, are you able to see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, as I mentioned, very happy to talk to VJTI students. As Anushka mentioned, was founded in 1887, and it has been a pioneer in India's engineering education, research, and training ecosystem. It's had very notable alumni, including Dr. Anil Kakotkar, who succeeded me as Director BARC and Chairman Atomic Energy Commission. Next slide. See, these are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals declared by the United Nations in 2015. And they defined, as I mentioned before, sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Well, they gave a list of 17 sustainable development goals. No poverty, that's the first one. If you are not poor, hopefully you are not hungry. And if you have more money, you go to good health and well-being. Then you want quality education for your children, and so on. And we look at many of them, the nuclear energy or the Department of Atomic Energy contributes very substantially. Agriculture, we produce a lot of mutants in agriculture, which have got higher productivity, which have got higher pest resistance. Number 3, good health and well-being. Many of the radioisotopes are used for health. Because the major cancer center in Bombay, Tata Memorial Center, is part of the Department of Atomic Energy. And also, if you want to do some scanning, so somebody has a thyroid problem, give him a glass of water containing a little bit of radioactive potassium. Scan. You can scan or anything. Technetium, if you want to scan the lungs and so on. 7, affordable and clean energy, of course. And 13, which is climate action. I'll mention here that the threat of climate change is before us. And it is very important that both in energy production and in other things, you don't emit too much of greenhouse gases or carbon dioxide in the case of burning fossil. Next. See, what is India for doing, particularly young guys like you? You want an India which is economically developed. And for us, UN's Sustainable Development Goals are the beginning. As I mentioned before, we want India to become a developed country and then a knowledge economy. We dream of an India where the Human Development Index is high. Next slide. See, I have plotted here Human Development Index against per capita electricity consumption. Normally, the United Nations defines it in terms of three parameters: life expectancy at birth, education index, and GNI per capita. Many years back, I've shown that the two measures for a developing country like India are per capita electricity consumption and female literacy. I prefer female literacy to adult literacy or the education index because that's a measure not only of literacy but equity and justice in that segment of society. And female literacy also correlates very strongly and inversely with infant mortality and birth rate. But a very important parameter, and these things are improving very greatly in India. Female illiteracy levels are going down sharply, and our birth rate is also going down and coming quite close to the replacement rate. Here I have plotted HDI against per capita electricity consumption, S-shaped curve. And we are somewhere in the middle of the steep rising portion. We want to go from there to somewhere near the cusp of the curve at the top. And for that, our per capita electricity consumption must go up by at least 6 to 8 times, 6 times. We want energy security. Electricity consumption must grow. But at the same time, we must also be concerned, reflect our concern for climate change. Go back to the previous slide. We want India to be scientifically advanced. With excellence in basic research, I've also added something called directed, we are not going to that, applied research, technology development, R&D-led innovation. But all of them have to be backed by high quality manufacturing skills. Generating knowledge without deriving value from it doesn't lead us very far. And I'll tell you what technology foresight is. You must use it to select the critical technologies for India. What are those technologies India needs for rapid development? And we must be militarily strong with the ability to fight and win conventional wars, crush perpetrators of terrorism, and with the capability for nuclear deterrence, which we have now achieved. In fact, I'll show it more detail again. National development and national security are two sides of the same coin. Development without security is vulnerable. Security without development is meaningless. We need both. And we need leaders. Can you go forward? One more. Unfortunately, we had a great leader, Dr. Omi Baba, the founder of our nuclear program. Of course, he died tragically in an air accident at a very young age, in his 50s. But you know, the Department of Atomic Energy did not slow down because Dr. Bhabha was a unique leader. He created a leadership swarm around him. Vikram Sarabhai for space, Homi Setna, chemical engineering, Raja Ramanna, physics, Brahm Prakash, metallurgy, E.S. Rao, electronics. And the culture he established in the Department of Atomic Energy helped nuclear many more leaders in the next generation. Now, the writer is a great writer, Arthur Koestler, talks about two kinds of leaders. He calls them the yogi and the kamisa. The yogi is the contemplative thinker. Kamisa is a man of action. Most leaders are a combination of both. One quality may dominate, but Baba was a unique mixture of both. And strong, very strong in both contemplative thinking, planning, and getting it done. He was also a person with great technology foresight. You know, just think of him, India building nuclear reactors in India at a time. when we were not even building bicycles of indigenous design. Next. See, what is it we want? I talked about the knowledge economy. The economy with the ability to generate new knowledge and the ability to appropriate knowledge generated anywhere in the world. For this, we need excellence in many areas: research, basic and applied, technology development, innovation. And I'll come back to this again. We must have, particularly the young people, an appetite for risk-taking. Economic, scientific, technological risks. Success cannot always be assured when you're doing pioneering research in frontier areas of science, or when you are developing new advanced technologies. But when you succeed, the payoffs are very, very high. And we must have exceptional ability to synergize internal capabilities. There may exist component capabilities, but sometimes mission-oriented agencies have got all of them under one roof. But many areas, I give you an example of the advanced ultra-supercritical thermal plant. When they exist in different organizations, we must have the ability to synergize these capabilities. We must be able to leverage international collaboration. But the initiatives should be ours. And we should make in India. Make in India is the slogan of this government, using indigenous technology for the Indian market. Leveraging international collaboration for the Indian market. Of course, both the above for the global market, because we are now strong enough to export. And then we must also, as I mentioned before, factor in the climate change action. See, according to the International Panel on Climate Change, 5th assessment report, the 6th has come out now, not substantial change. And what they said and what they say now, though there are a few skeptics, warming of the climate system is unequivocal. The atmosphere and the ocean are warmed by about a degree from the time of the Industrial Revolution. Amounts of snow and ice have diminished, and the sea level has risen. And it is predicted that the frequency and intensity of extreme events like cyclones, rainfall, heavy rainfall are going to increase. And the 6th report, International Center report of the Integrated Mountain Development, it says, given 35% of the glaciers in the Hindu Kush region could retreat by 2100. Said at one time, the government, the world has said, if you are able to limit the temperature rise to 2 degrees, global warming to 2 degrees, it's fine. But now they feel even that is too dangerous. Limited to 1.5 degrees. And the IPCC report says key measures if you want to mitigate, say the 3 aspects of climate change. You must model it, you must mitigate it, and then whatever has happened, you must adjust to it, adapt to it. So these are the 3 aspects. And as far as the mitigation is concerned, we must go for renewable energy, nuclear, carbon capture and storage, including bioenergy with carbon dioxide capture. Next slide. This modeling is the most difficult one. And you have to, typical climate models, and resolution of 50 to 100 degrees. Now the Europeans are trying to make a model, what they call a digital twin of the Earth, to model at 1 kilometer resolution. And that can make predictions require 6 supercomputers, and I'm going to establish 3 of them in Europe. We'll all join together. And this project is likely to start next year. That is the almost should have started already, but for the COVID. Thank you. Next slide. Renewable energy, very important. The government is very enthusiastic about it. They have got what a mission 500 gigawatt. The announced Prime Minister Modi at the COP26 meeting in Glasgow last month, targeting 500 megawatt renewable energy capacity at 2030. Present situation, 100 gigawatt. We want to multiply it in 10 years, 5 times. Renewable energy, which is now 44,000, wind installed capacity, small hydro, biomass, waste to power. And you know, whether it is solar cells or VLSI chips, the chips for solar cells, VLSI, they're all imported. And though we have the capability, though we have also been trying to push industry to take it up, manufacturing of polysilicon. Some of the best quads from which polysilicon is made is in Andhra. Polysilicon wafer ingots. But only yesterday, the government has announced a comprehensive program for the development of sustainable conductor, semiconductor and display ecosystem in the country, making India a global hub. This should have been done earlier, but at least I'm very glad present government is working. And it's going to cost $10 billion. We have got only one fab that is in Chandigarh, Semiconductor Complex Limited. But we have to go in a very big way for setting up the semiconductor fabs in the country. What I mentioned in the Indian Advanced Ultra Supercritical program. So we very much want renewable energy and nuclear to come up. Next 20 years, we are going to be burning quite a bit of coal. But if we are able to raise the temperature of the steam to about 700 degrees, that's what you require an ultra supercritical steam, then we can, for the same amount of power that you produce, you can cut down the amount of carbon dioxide that you emit. So whenever the PSA, we brought together a consortium, BHEL, who are makers of power engineering equipment, NTPC, best higher power utility in India. And this is a materials problem which can stand all those high temperatures. So we brought in the Indira Gandhi Centre for Atomic Research. And this project is now completed because the government had funded this project in March. It was headed by Chetal, who was a former director of the Indira Gandhi Centre for Atomic Research. And now we are hoping that the commercial production of this 800 megawatt plant will start next year. These are the operating nuclear power plants in India. We want to increase it very sharply. It's about 7,000 megawatts plus now. Some more have been, one more. Next slide. And these are the projects under construction. Various places. Next slide. But you know, as I mentioned about international collaboration, and here India is now beginning to collaborate not on a donor recipient basis, but on an equal partner basis. You want to be equal partners. For example, this very interesting project, Large Hadron Collider, which is there in Geneva. Proton is a hadron. See what they have here in Geneva is a tunnel 100 meters below the ground, 26 kilometers in circumference. And protons are moving in circles in 2 orbits very close to each other. Once in a while, they collide. Energy disappears. You know, if you take Einstein equation, many of you must have read that, E is equal to mc squared. Energy is equal to mass destroyed multiplied by the square of the velocity of light. That is how nuclear energy is produced. But if you do it the other way around, you destroy energy, you will have to get mass. And the higher the energy of the colliding particles, here they were in several tera electron volts. Tera is million, billion, and then tera. MW, GW, TW. And to produce this, they were looking for the missing particle in the standard model of the nucleus. The Higgs boson, which they knew was 130 to 150 times the mass of the mass of the proton. So they had, and they found it. And India contributed $40 million worth of equipment, superconducting corrector magnets, sextupole, octupole, and decapole magnets also for the detector. Actually, we were collaborators. TFR was a collaborator in the CMS detector, compact neutron solenoid, which actually saw the first signal of the Higgs boson. Boson, you know why it is called the boson? There are two kinds of fundamental particles. Spin half, named after Fermi, that's called fermion. Integral spin 0 or 1 or even above is named after Satyendra Nath Bose. That's why it's called the boson. Next slide. E is equal to mc squared, I mentioned. Nuclear energy, fission energy. That's what you saw in the nuclear power plants. But when you fuse light isotopes, let us say of hydrogen, hydrogen has got 3 isotopes: hydrogen, deuterium, tritium. For example, deuterium and tritium. There is a mass deficit, energy is produced. That's what we call fusion energy. And the first 500 megawatt fusion reactor, of course, we have all done experiments in Gandhinagar. There is a tokamak, there is a kind of plasma in a donut type of ring in which you raise the temperature. Because the temperatures you want to raise are in the region of 10 million electron volts. No material can hold it. But you have to, superconducting magnets have to be at cryogenic temperatures. So the entire thing is in a huge cryostat. And that cryostat was supplied by India. And it has been, the base has been installed, I'm sure, last year. And the other, because the fusion energy comes, there is deuterium, so much of deuterium in seawater, but then it will take a lot of technology development. That's a huge challenge for engineers. Next slide. This is what I said, national development and national security, two sides of the same coin. We want development, we want security. There are instances of countries in history who had huge development, but they were overrun by smaller but more powerful countries. There are countries where the security was very high, development was negligible, so people protested and there were revolutions. No, you want to be strong. The greatest advantage of recognized strength, if it is whether it's an individual or a country, is that you don't have to use it. Nobody will bother you if they know you are a strong person. You can retaliate back. Greatest disadvantage of perceived weakness is that your enemy may get adventurous. Nobody wants to use nuclear weapons. But we want to deter anybody from using against us or threatening us with nuclear weapons. Next slide. See, this is the historical sharing of nuclear weapons knowledge by a couple of American authors after our 98 tests. And they've shown how shared between US and France, France and Israel, Israel and South Africa, Russia and China, China and Pakistan. But India stands alone. We didn't need anybody's help. We didn't have to spy or get anything by clandestine methods because we have all the expertise. And once the government decided we'll go for it, we went for it. We called it a peaceful nuclear explosive in 74. But in 98, of course, we did it in a full way. Next slide. Just a cartoon after our 98 test. This guy with a big mouth and the big teeth, obviously an American, telling the Indian in a Gandhi cap, you must not make the bomb. Why do you want the bomb? The Gandhi cap tells the suit, because if I had one, you wouldn't talk to me like this. Of course, this is not the reason. This is just a cartoon in Hindustan Times. It came before the 98 test. Next slide. See, India's nuclear program is what I took this expression from Nicholas Taleb. He's a big writer, wonderful writer, Nassim Nicholas Taleb. He introduced a word called the Black Swan in his first bestseller. Black Swan is an unexpected event with very serious consequences. And he wrote another book, and he coined the phrase anti-fragile. See, if something is robust, then it does not break down under stress. The resilient resists shocks, stays the same. But the anti-fragile gets better and better. And this is true of our nuclear program. I've said in my early lectures. We have resisted and overcome the shocks of technology denials. When I was director of BARC, I defined self-reliance, not as trying to do everything yourself. No need. When you're building a complex systems and subsystems are available to you from outside, go ahead and use them. But if anything is denied to you, including the proverbial wheel, you must have the capability to do it yourself. That's why I define self-reliance as immunity against technology denial. And then, because they saw that nothing they can do about our nuclear program, the nuclear supplier group guidelines have been relaxed, especially for India, even though we are a non-signatory to the non-proliferation treaty. And now we have the opportunity to leverage international cooperation to strengthen our own initiative. I used to joke to my Western friend many years back, when the denial regime was in place. We need you in the short term. You are going to need India in the long term. When you come back to nuclear, your nuclear programs are slowing down for various reasons. Only two countries in nuclear program are very virile and strong, India and China. And when you come back to nuclear, and you will have to do that if you are serious about climate change, then you know who are your friends. Next slide. IAEA perspectives is UK Amano, Director General of IAEA, was in India, and he said, because India is one of the few countries in the world which has comprehensive capability in what is called the fuel cycle. And that is what he's referring to here, three-stage Indian nuclear program. And in fact, remarkable success in the use for peaceful nuclear technology, inspiration for many developing countries. Forefront of technological development in the area of fast reactors and related new fuel cycle. See, most of our indigenous nuclear power plants are based on pressurized heavy water reactors using natural uranium as fuel. But that reactor burns uranium-235, but the other isotope, and 99% of that is uranium-238, gets converted to plutonium. And plutonium is a good fuel in fast reactors, the type we are building in Kalpakkam. And there we'll expose thorium because we have a highest resource of thorium. And thorium again gets converted to uranium-233, and that happens better in a fast reactor. So this is our three-stage nuclear program, and we're well on the way on that. So I always say safety and reliability go together. Any complex system, including your own car, if it doesn't give you trouble, it is likely to be very safe. And look at this reliability of the India-designed nuclear power plants, Indian-made. The Kaiga-1 nuclear power plant broke the world record for continuous operation, 941 days in 2016. Then, of course, after another couple of weeks, they shut it down. 3 weeks, they shut it down for maintenance shutdown. Next slide. Of course, nuclear is not just electricity and nuclear weapons. I mentioned before, radiation-induced mutations can give you new varieties, almost 50 hybrids produced by radiation. You see the variety over there. Higher pest resistance, higher increased productivity. We are able to export irradiated mangoes to US because it increases shelf life. Until started irradiating them. Wealth from high-level waste, isotope hydrology, rejuvenating. You know what we did in Uttarakhand? Uttarakhand had this problem about, maybe I'll show you a slide on that a little later. Cancer treatment, industrial applications, leak detection in dams, many other hygienization of sewage sludge. So nuclear application, in fact, I once said, there is no field of societal activity in which nuclear is absent or will be absent. Next slide. Because when I was the PSA, I was giving a talk, I said, when Arun Shourie, the Minister for Electronics, was there, I told the audience, I was giving talk as a keynote lecture on of the Department of Electronics, that we missed the microelectronics revolution, we should not miss the nanoelectronics revolution. So Mr. Shourie said, okay, then do something about it. I said, give me 100 crores. By open brainstorming, we will identify 2 places where we can start global nanoelectronic centers. And turned out to be Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and IIT, Bombay. Now, of course, more have come up. And these are world-class centers, are accessible to anybody, including VJTI. If you want to use those facilities, next slide. Already so many people are using it, 700. We started the same time, Indian national users. Maybe your VJTI is already using it. How many projects? 400 papers, 600 projects, and also the international collaboration. Because this is a modern facility, 30 universities abroad, and in some of them, the facilities are not as good as they are in these 2 places. This is Naukan Bhatt is from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Next slide. They also have, the government, when I was the PSA, the government suggested that if any major facility is purchased through public funding, then it should be available for everybody. So we started this program because, as I said, Indian National Users Program was already there. We already have a national knowledge network. I'll show a slide on that shortly. And any facility is now accessible to anybody in India. If the facility was acquired through public funding, It is called ISTEM, Indian Science, Technology, Engineering Facilities Map. The nodal center is at the Center for Nanoscience and Engineering, and already 850 organizations are connected, and 20,000 equipment has been uploaded. And it is operational for the last 3 years, more than 3 years. Next slide. See, generally, when you want to produce a product, there are 3 stages: research, development, delivery. And it's well known. Academic institutions are good in research, poor in development, and by and large, very bad in delivery. Industry is good in delivery, not so good in development, and zero by and large in research. Of course, there are a few exceptions. And India's technology needs range from nuclear and space to rural. And obviously, we must target inclusive growth, including rural areas. For industry development, we must have enhanced academia-industry interaction. That's what, as Anushka mentioned, we had created these interfaces for automobile sector, machine tool sector, electronics, hardware sector. This is what I call pre-competitive applied research. Applied research, pre-competitive, intellectual property rests with the academic institution. If the company develops something, it becomes proprietary. That is there, and they can have their patents on that. For rural development, knowledge is there, but it's not getting delivered. And the various techniques, I'm not going to go into the detail of that. Knowledge, technology transfer, but by and large, doesn't work in rural development. By and large, it does work, like in Sarguna, producing for BARC transferred many places. That is waste to biogas. Knowledge brokering, scaling of innovations, concept transfer, followed by a term I coined called re-innovation. Next slide. See, for example, we funded this project in IIT Madras, and IIT Madras, we brought a company in. They also contributed some money, Micromatics. And IIT Madras has developed the world's best grinding machine tool, whose picture that you see here. The Ministry of Heavy Industry is so impressed by it, so they have started a project there in advanced manufacturing, and have given them almost a dozen projects in various areas. Next slide. And now, of course, the other extension, which is now being done by my successor in the PSA's office, is to create these SMD clusters in various parts of the country. You will see at least half a dozen are here, centered in institution, covering the various areas here, particularly if they are MSMEs, micro and small medium enterprises. The institution that is providing academic support to them has to be proximate. The cost of technology transfer increases if the institution which is providing the technology is too distant. Next slide. This is the one you saw there. Many projects have been done under this program. It's called RuTAG, Rural Technology Action Group. See, what happened was, I saw in Uttarakhand, they make on top of the hill, they make what are called khals or artificial ponds to collect rainwater. And that water seeps through broken rock and hopefully reaches the aquifers where villages are located. What Anil Joshiji, who is there and he has his own voluntary organization, HESCO, he asked me was, how do I know when I build this khal or the pond that water will go to useful aquifers and not go into useless places? So I had brought in BARC. They use what's called this isotope hydrology technique to track water. They use techniques like 18 oxygen content, heavy hydrogen content, tritium content. There is a traces of radioactive tritium in the atmosphere. And they track the water and send, you put subsurface dikes at these points and the water will go the way they want. You see on the left picture that small dike, white, doesn't go very deep because the surface water only flows very near the surface percolation. And from there, and this spring, what you see on the right is a new spring which had either dried up or was not there. And now discharge rates of the springs went up more than threefold. And now look at the number of springs in Uttarakhand and Himachal that have benefited from this technology. Next slide. Coming back to technology management, really we must have a technology strategy. Assessing role of technology, manufacture, operations. Of course, you can have technology in all over the place, but mainly in manufacture. Innovation support, and of course, your leadership with a proper mindset, have a technology roadmap, and technology foresight. That's what I said about Bhabha, how we had great technology foresight. Technology foresight, forecasting, talks about how, if you want to analyze how any particular technology is going to grow in the future, that's forecasting. But then you assess, do I need it for my country? Based on economic, social, and other issues, environmental issues, then it becomes technology foresight. On the basis of this, from all possible technologies that can be delivered, that can be developed and delivered, you choose those for your own country. And these are called critical technologies. Critical technologies may differ from one country to another. Of course, India is such a large and diverse country. This list is very, very large. And then we have to take into account sustainability. Is this technology sustainable? By using the resources in a sustainable way. For example, even in materials technology, materials are needed for any technology, special materials. But we are now also talking about sustainable materials without depleting non-renewable resources. Of course, we must also talk of, we have serious problems. It's not just using materials and throwing it away. What about the waste that you create? Already we have serious problems with auto waste. We did address this issue when I was the PSA. Captain Mohan Ram, we funded a project and that's growing. Environmental Ministry now issued an order that when you build a car, build it in such a way it can be taken apart easily. Electronic waste. So many mobile phones, so many computers. What are you going to do with all this waste? And in the future, even solar panel waste. So all this we have to keep in mind when you talk about sustainable materials. Next slide. Technology management is an important issue. We need leadership, management and leadership of multidisciplinary projects within an institution. When you design a nuclear power plant, or you build nuclear weapons, or you build light combat aircraft, space launch vehicles, missiles, are examples of the former. But sometimes you need to get together, as I said, coherent synergy. Pokhran test, 3 parties are involved. The designer of the weapons was the Department of Atomic Energy. The explosive lenses detonators came from DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization. And the tests were done with the help of the armed forces in Pokhran. Taking over the advanced ultra supercritical thermal plant, I mentioned to IGCAR, BHEL, and TPC. And we also need multidisciplinary talent clusters, but they must be identified, or you must create them. This is what we try to do in what I call the synergy projects of our office. Next slide. Told you, mentioned about Indian Knowledge Network. This was a proposal actually early 2000, 2004 or earlier. Because we found that we had that old ERNET, whereas optical fiber were coming. And we didn't have a proper research and education network. Of course, we had some excellent people. We brought them together, proposed to the government, Indian national knowledge, a global research and education network. And now we have this. It is connecting 1,600 knowledge institutions in the country, run by National Informatics Center of the Ministry of Electronics. The director, R.S. Mani, is brilliant, brilliant, now not so bad. And it is connected to GIAN, Europe, Trans-Eurasian Network, Internet 2 of the US, and we have our own hubs belonging to super pops in Geneva, Amsterdam, and Singapore. And we need it. See, what is it? This is a very nice book by Noah Harari. Some of you might have read it. The first book was Homo sapiens. The follow-up was Homo Deus, Preface of Tomorrow. And he says, humans nowadays completely dominate the planet. Not because the individual human is far smarter and more nimble-fingered than the individual chimp or wolf, but because Homo sapiens is the only species on Earth which is capable of cooperating in large numbers. And communication is the foundation on which cooperation is based. We had language, we had then telephone, now we have optical fiber and increasing communication. Next one. Because the more you communicate, the more you become vulnerable. Cybersecurity becomes a big problem. And in fact, Leon Panetta, US Defense Secretary, saying the next attack on the US, well, you see, you connect your power grid system, transportation system, financial networks or government operations through a network, and somebody intercepts it, then there is a problem. And that's why he said, this will be the cyber Pearl Harbor for the US. Of course, many people can use hyperbole. There are enough. See, there is a cyber attacker and there is a cyber defender. You have firewalls, intrusion detection, prevention system. You can use artificial intelligence to strengthen these things. But hackers and attackers are also using data analysis, machine learning, and leveraging artificial intelligence to learn new methods of attack. So we have methods, AI-driven facial recognition, which gives you a security asset. But they are also using it to produce deepfake media capable of fooling humans and machines and so on. Next one. Artificial intelligence are now omnipresent. Nuclear power, their operating system uses artificial intelligence so that you are able to identify false alarms. As I mentioned, artificial intelligence and machine learning used in cyber security. In fact, it is everywhere from commerce to cyber security. But there are people who are scared of long-term development. There are people like Stephen Hawking. He said, if you go on developing it, it spells the end of the human race. I don't agree. I agree more with Roger Penrose, who argues that humans will always be smarter than computers and computer algorithms or any other cybernetic machines that they create. Of course, you must define intelligence. I'll not go into this. The computers cannot have the kind of intelligence that we have. They can create assistive robots. But how much can they communicate with one another, interpersonal or intrapersonal, like humans can do? Next slide. Of course, there are people, as I said, Stephen Hawking, who are talking about super intelligent robots. Here is a review of this book by on Srinivasa Ramanujan, the great magical genius, died at 32. And what he says, he has reviewed this book, this professor from Israel, and he says, he calls him a super genius, a man who most of his life, of course he was a very religious man, and he has left in his notebooks theorems which leave mathematicians baffled how anyone could divine them in the first place. And he has given the theorems without proofs. Either they were obvious to him or he didn't want to waste his time doing that. And then he says, Ezekiel Dror, current efforts to spawn robots with artificial general intelligence, super intelligence. But what he says is the phenomenon of Ramanujan and a few other geniuses is not only beyond the scales of intelligence, but above the concept of intelligence itself. No enhancement of human intelligence by robots, through robots, opens a door to becoming a Ramanujan. And no algorithm is likely to produce robots with the abilities of Ramanujan. And he says, we cannot conceptualize the quantum leap that would be required for this. Can I have the next slide, please? Come to the last slide, technology is power. See, long time back, this famous physiologist, Alvin Toffler. Alvin Toffler wrote one of his famous statements. Oh, it is 30 years back. Yesterday, violence was power. Today, wealth is power. And tomorrow, knowledge will be power. Now, why did he say this? Why was violence power? Continues to be power. Whoever has the best technology for inflicting violence is the most powerful technology. Why is wealth is power? You may have the knowledge, but whoever has the money to convert that knowledge into technology, he becomes powerful. Technology. And tomorrow knowledge will be power, which has already come to pass. Knowledge is the one that leads technology. So I paraphrase Alvin Toffler to say technology is power and will continue to be so in the foreseeable future. That is why technology domination is sought through two mechanisms, intellectual property rights and technology control regimes. Now, you young guys want India to be a global technology leader. India should be in the forefront in creating intellectual property rights and make itself immune to technology control regimes, like we have done in the nuclear field. We must also have the stomach to be the first introducer of new advanced technology. Of course, you do all due diligence, assure yourself about the technology, techno-economic viability, its importance to the country. I mentioned the use of the word critical technology for India, its safety, and so on. But there are some people, and I'm not one of them, who will go in only for proven technology. It's where risk-taking comes in. The great economist, Nobel Prize winner, Abhijit Banerjee, he was giving a talk on poverty and risk. And he said, poor people take up low risk, low return projects. So they remain poor. And Rosenweis also says, better to act and fail than fail to act. You must act. If India is to be a technology leader, after due diligence, and don't go for proven technology unless they're subjected to continuous evolution improvement like pressurized water reactor. Because if it's a static proven technology, it's often a synonym for obsolete technology. And you young people are the last ones to think of India specializing in obsolete technology. Anushka, I'm closing now.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for such an insightful lecture. I'm sure that I'm speaking on behalf of the entire audience watching us that you have positively revealed groundbreaking thoughts and promising ideas while instilling a new perspective in our lives. Sir, do you have any word of advice for students interested in becoming scientists?
I think Swami Vivekananda?
Yes, sir.
No, great man. 100 years back. 100 years back, he said, the old theology was, you are an atheist if you didn't believe in God. And he said, today, you are an atheist if you don't believe in yourself. Of course, he was a believer in Advaita Vedanta. Self-belief. But he was talking of self-belief. First thing you people should have, self-belief in yourself and in your country. I have always said there's nothing India cannot do. Second, you must have optimism. Sometimes you will come across obstacles. Sometimes you will not succeed in what you are doing. But don't give up. Only the faint-hearted give up. Sometimes, for various reasons, things may not go the way you want. Grab opportunities when they come. Of course, after due diligence, you may feel there may be some risk involved if I go there. But you go. And you must have passion. Passion to do great things. One for yourself and more for your country. That will be my advice to the young guys.
Yes, so that is indeed aspiring, and certainly students, it will help the students to steer towards their goal with zeal and enthusiasm. Thank you so much, sir. We are glorified by your presence today. It was indeed an influential session, and we are glad to be a part of it. Also, thank you to a wonderful audience for tuning in. We hope you all enjoyed this session. I am Anushka Vag signing off. And until next time, this is Technovanza VJTI.
Thank you.